What's up, YouTube? So welcome to part 2 of all of the work that we're doing today to the Cam Silverado. The first video will be in the description, the link of that will, and that was the install of the Zona engine mounts. Like I said, mine were wore out, so we threw some new ones in it. But this second video is going to be spark plugs and a fuel filter. It should be pretty straightforward considering the truck actually doesn't have fender wells or front wheels on it right now, so makes doing spark plugs with the long tube headers a whole lot easier. But just wanted to show y'all what plugs we're going with as well as filters. So I do a lot of reading and a lot of research on this stuff before I start buying it, and the NGK TR55s or 3951 is their part number, but TR55 plug gapped at about 50. We will throw those plugs in there. I've always liked NGK, had real good luck running them in the race car, so I run them in this truck, have ran them in this truck. I think it might have some AC Delco plugs in it right now, and that was just, I don't even know why I did that, to be completely honest. But also the fuel filter is going to be a Wix filter. I like Wix over some of the other ones, depending on what filter it is. Typically when I do an oil change on this one, it is a Wix filter. When I do the oil change on my Power Stroke, that one is typically a Motorcraft filter, just because that's what makes me feel comfortable. But fuel filter wise, we are going with a Wix 33481, and nothing to it. These filters are actually super easy. It's got a, it's basically got a threaded connection on each side. Nothing to it. But we'll go ahead and get started on the spark plugs, and before we button the fender wells and everything back up, we're going to start it just to make sure everything's fine. Look at the engine mounts and whatnot, but we'll go ahead and start on the spark plugs. So as I have told y'all before, when I put this truck together, it was a budget build. So as you can see here, we've got a stock plug wire there, and the last three we've got aftermarket, and the only reason for that was because the stock plug wires were rubbing on the headers. But if you don't know much about vehicles and you're just watching this to watch it, there are 4 spark plugs on this side, and that is because it is a V8 vehicle, so it's got 8 cylinders, got 4 on each side, and typically these are not the easiest to get off. So there we go. Got that one off. Oh, that's not good. Just ripped the inside of that plug wire off. So I got to looking around the garage, and I know I always save stuff, but got some AC Delco plugs here, or plug wires rather, and the used set that actually came off of my truck. So that's what's gonna go back on there. Like I said, I just ripped the inside of that plug wire off. These plugs honestly haven't been touched in a very long time, and that will happen. I knew it didn't feel right coming off, but the plug is pretty much seized to where the plug wire goes on, but it's not a big deal. But I'm gonna go ahead and time lapse getting the rest of them off, and we will get to taking the plugs out. Sorry. So now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I am almost curious if that's where the rough running was coming from. It had a little bit of like a rougher idle, and no, it wasn't cam related. But I'm almost curious if this plug wire was messed up, and that's why it broke. There we go. So it's already jacked up, but there it is. It ripped out of that plug, or out of that wire, so really not that big of a deal. But now we'll go ahead and try to get them all out. Like I said, they are a pain to get to because of the long tubes. So we'll do our best to try to get to them with a spark plug socket. These are all 5/8 of an inch, so I'll try to get to them, and we'll see how much of a pain it is today. So these are the plugs that I pulled out. This one, man, I don't know if it was cracked while it was in there, but it definitely came out in two. I don't think it was cracked because I feel like it would have pulled out in the plug wire. It may have just cracked when I was pulling it out. But either way, this one came out in two pieces, and a tall tale sign of it not firing would be this being black here. The plugs actually don't look bad. They're all got about that same coloration. This one was running a little richer than these two. This one came out of one of the, second from the rear. I can't remember if this is the odd or even side. But like I said, I do like running NGKs. So I thought it had some auto lights in it. I don't know why. I mean, some AC Delco plugs in it. I'm not sure why, but these were the Iridium TR5iX, and I mean, they ran good. I beat this truck all the time, and I don't see any issue with them at all, except for that one getting stuck, and then this one here coming out in two. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and install this side of plugs, and we'll replace that wire, and then we'll jump onto the other side. Okay, so these are the new plugs. Like I said, the NGK TR55. And your plug gap is your gap between, I want to say that's your electrode and your ground. I could be completely wrong, I can't remember, but you've got a slight gap in there, and that is the gap that you have to set. Like I said, I was going to set it at 50 thousandths, and it's actually, oh no, it's set about 55 right now. So when all this is right here is a spark plug gap gauge, really. So right now it's at 55-ish, 56 thousandths. So what I'll do is you'll just tap it in. You got to keep in mind that you know, it's only 5 thou. So this process can be a little tedious. I'm going to hit it with this softer on it. But this process can be a little tedious, and that's about 50 thou right there. So you just read where it's at on that gauge, and it's reading about 50 thou right now. So I'm going to go ahead and gap the rest of them, and we'll time lapse that and get them installed on this driver's side. So I went ahead and gapped all of them while they were here to that 50 thousandths. Like I said, these plugs must be pre-gapped at 55, but that's fine. We closed it up about 5 thou, and hopefully the truck likes these plugs. Everybody's recommending them, so we'll go ahead and install them on the driver's side. I'll just time lapse that. All that's going to be is a reverse of what I just did when I pulled them out, and then we'll replace that one plug wire, and that's pretty simple. If I can get my tripod to cooperate. So here is where it plugs in to your coil pack, not the red thing. Right here, this is your plug wire here that plugs into your coil pack, and then it just runs down. So that was for that front cylinder. Not really a big deal. Like I said, I've got extras. If you don't got extras, then it would be a big deal. But sometimes it does that, and you know, you've got to replace plug wires. So we'll go ahead and replace that too and get everything in there and be good to go on this side. So just wanted to mention this right quick. So one additional thing that I'm going to do to mitigate that issue of it pulling the plug off, or the plug wire off on the plug again, is I'm going to dap these with a little bit of dielectric grease, just like that. And here's what the plug wire that I'm going to put in. But whenever you put it in, it now has a little bit of grease on that connection, so it now pulls out easier. So that's just a word of advice right there. Sorry if I'm not in the camera frame, but just a word of advice. Dielectric grease, always something good to use. So we'll go ahead and get that plug wire on there like I said, and then put the plugs in. Okay, so we've got all the plugs tight. Like I said, I'm gonna put a little bit of dielectric grease on each one of them. But just one thing to mention that I did not mention earlier, make sure that you do not over tighten them when you are putting them into the cylinder heads. You can either pull the threads out of the head, or you can break the plug off, which neither of those would be anywhere near ideal, because then you've got to pull the head, and you are asking for a lot more work. So if it gets to that point, you'll be in a bind. I don't know if you could really tell from how I tightened them up, but I mean, I had quite a bit of extensions on there to begin with just to get to them. And that was just to reach them. But like I said, don't tighten too tight. I'm gonna fight with these plug wires, get them on. The next thing you'll see though is the fuel filter, because the other side, I'm gonna just try to get that knocked out real quick. I'm running out of daylight. So but yeah, and one last thing I guess I could say is, whenever you are putting these plug wires on, make sure that you can feel them snap onto the plug. But we'll go ahead and get everything done and go to the fuel filter. All right guys, well I am wore out, I'm not going to lie, but the plugs are done. Everything is back together. Didn't do the fuel filter just yet. We're gonna go ahead and do that tomorrow morning, put the tires on and whatnot. But I did just go to try and start the truck, and it was flashing unknown driver at me. Not the first time it's done that. All you've got to do is, so right now, I'm sorry it's dark because the truck obviously doesn't have power right now, but you got to put the key in the on position. If your truck ever, or your Chevy, GM, whatever you want to call it, ever unprograms the key, it'll flash unknown driver. So turn the key to the on position and then undo the ground, and it will basically reprogram itself. But we are done for the night, and you can basically leave that key like that for about 20-30 minutes. But we will go ahead and finish it up in the morning. Got the most of the work done today. I'm just glad I got the motor mounts out of the way. They've been looking at me for a while. So we'll jump back in tomorrow. Alright guys, so I know the video is going to be continuous, but now we are into the next day. Where we left off yesterday was the key had unprogrammed itself. Like I said, all that I do when that happens is I put the key all the way forward in the run position, pull the ground terminal off of the battery, leave it off for about 20 minutes, put the ground terminal back on, and the key reprograms itself. The truck's done it probably 2 or 3 times. I don't know if it's a Chevrolet problem. Really don't know why it does it either. It always does it when the battery is disconnected for an extended period of time, like when I did the starter, so I had to undo the battery. But all we lack is fuel filter and putting the wheel wells back in, as well as putting the tires back on. So we are going to go ahead and get started on that. Okay guys, so y'all are looking at the driver's side frame rail and looking from the gas tank, which is the rear of the truck. But this is going to be your fuel filter here. And the Wix filter that I bought, exact same, just fits right in there. You've got 2 threaded connections here. And the 2 wrenches that I got are going to be a 13/16 and a 5/8. So your 13/16 is going to be for the filter, and your 5/8 is going to be for the nut on the actual threaded line that's coming to and from. Just one thing to mention though, on these filters, majority of the time, if they are a inline filter like this, they will have a arrow that basically represents the direction of flow, and you are going to be flowing from your tank to the fuel system in the front, your injectors and whatnot. So just keep in mind of that. Don't put it on backwards. But we'll go ahead and take this out. This little strap, I'm pretty sure mine's broke, but if I'm not mistaken, I want to say that the filter typically just slides out. You can move the line to the side and you'll just slide the filter out and slide it in. But mine's broke, so I'll probably just end up pulling it out. The hard lines hold it good enough, so not really a big deal. But yeah, we'll go ahead and change this right quick, get a quick time lapse of that, and go from there. All right, so as you can see there, that was fairly simple. The one thing that I did was I got a drain pan out. These filters do not leak a lot of fuel like a lot of your diesel trucks or a lot of your canister filters, but it does leak a little bit. So just me not wanting gas on the floor of the garage, I put a drain plug, or a drain pan under it rather. So just got it all tightened up, got the snapback in there. Fuel lines are in their place, and we are good to go. Fuel filter is done, so we'll go ahead and start putting wheels and tires back. Okay, so one thing that I didn't mention when changing the fuel filter is that anytime you make a break in the fuel lines, you need to prime it. So by prime it, all you do is put it in the on position, you listen for the fuel pump, and whenever the fuel pump cuts off, you can go ahead and, the fuel pump's not off yet, but you would go ahead and take the key out, or turn the key to the off position, take the key out, and continue to do that. I typically do it about 5 times, and typically never have an issue with a vehicle starting up. And that just makes sure that you get fuel back everywhere that you need to, and you don't have any air pockets. Okay, so we have primed it about 5 times, and we'll go ahead and start it. No issues there. No check engine lights or anything for a misfire, so that means that we did the plugs and all of that right. I guess it likes the plug gap that we did. So we'll go ahead and get a small time lapse of putting the wheels and the wheel wells or wheel liners, whatever you want to call them, back in, and we'll go ahead and take the truck for a test drive. Alright guys, so as you can see behind me, the truck is finally back on the ground. I started, I would say, about noon yesterday, and it is, I am in Texas, so it was probably 100, 103-ish. It was way hotter in the garage. By about, I would say, 9 o'clock, I was done, was tired, did not want to work on it anymore. So ended up jumping up out of bed about 8:30, got onto the truck about 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, so pretty much a full 12 hours, 11 hours. These long tubes make everything so complicated. And then having to do everything on your back and not having a lift where you got to do everything on the ground makes it a little more complicated. But now we are going to go ahead and take the truck out. We're going to go do some test drives, do a couple of test hits, maybe a few burnouts. So this is the exciting part of the video. Stay tuned. Driving the truck normal, seems to be driving fine. One thing that I did forget that I needed to do was the oil sending unit. So if you see that in a little bit laying down 80 psi, it's not accurate. I know the truck's got oil pressure and it's fine. I just haven't changed it yet. But I will say one thing that I noticed with the Zona motor mounts, which were the install of part 1, was since they're more of a solid mount, whenever the truck is sitting there idling, and my truck cams a lot harder when the AC is off. Just because it doesn't go into a high idle. But even with the AC on, as hard as it is camming with the AC on, it was still rocking the truck. So if you don't want that effect, I would say go with a stock mount. Granted, my stock mounts were wore out, so that may have been where all the give was coming from, and maybe that's why it wasn't translating into the truck. But I will say with the Zona, it is a lot more obvious in how the truck is sitting there rocking. Just wanted to point that out though, in case anybody didn't like that aspect. If you're looking at Zona mounts and your truck's not cammed and whatnot, really wouldn't be a big deal. But the way that mine's set up right now, it does sit there and rock, which I like that, but some people might not. Just wanted to throw that in there. So we're gonna go ahead and make a pull here. I got the AC off, cutouts open, windows are down, but this thing, with the way, and I should have known, I do it every time, but the way that the cam is spec'd out, it is a special ground cam, and what I told them was I didn't want to spend a lot of RPMs with it. I want to say the ship points are about 6,500, and it's got a $3 grand 3200 stall converter in it, but if you try to launch it without any burnout, just, you know, regular street, it's gonna spin. It does it every time, and that's what it just did. It spun, went into second, and then once it caught, because I kind of pedaled it a little bit, it shifted down into first, and then you know, went up. But there is another video of this truck when I first started doing YouTube. It is down there, but now, so that was a little pull from a dead stop. The best this truck performs, I'm not gonna lie, is from a 30 roll. I may get one of those in the minute, but we're gonna go ahead and do a little burnout clip too. See how that goes. So like I said, this truck really performs best from a 30 roll. So we'll go ahead. Man, for this truck being cam only, it's got a little bit of head work done. It performs great. What I like about it is the bottom end of it is really torquey, and that's all thanks to Pat G. He spec'd out the cam, tuned the truck and all that. The only thing I did was all the work. So we'll take it back to the house and we'll go ahead and close this video on out. As y'all can see in the pull videos and on the burnout video, the truck is running great. Can't really tell you whether or not it picked up any horsepower by changing spark plugs. That's typically not going to happen, right? It may have picked up a little bit, maybe, you know, 5-6 horsepower just because of the other plugs being old. I can tell you that I don't know if it was the plugs or if it was the fuel filter that they actually cleaned up that hesitation at idle, and sometimes it would get so bad, especially when the AC was on and you were backing up and then you threw it in drive to go forward, the truck would die. So like I said in part one, that is going to be all of the Zona install on the engine mounts. This part two is just going to be finishing up and starting the spark plugs, broke that wire, replaced that wire, did a fuel filter in it, and then made some pulls in it, did a burnout in it. But overall, the truck is running great. I really hope y'all enjoyed that video. We have passed 100,000 views on the channel, currently sitting a little under 500 subscribers, and we have met the threshold for 4,000 watch hours to start getting paid by YouTube ad revenue, which in other words is monetized, but still making the push to 1,000 subs. So if you have not yet and you like the videos that are on my channel, go ahead and sub to the channel. But that's going to be it for this video. The 5.3 is running great. The hood stack Jet is still running great. The 21 King Ranch, I haven't done any videos on that one yet, but that truck runs like a spotted ape, even though it's stock. Plan on doing a little bit of work to that. But thanks for watching. Go ahead and give us a follow on YouTube and TikTok at NRC Things if you enjoy all of this.